Chiefs Kingdom, I am back. And what better way to get back into the rhythm of things with the Kansas City Chiefs making a new acquisition at wide receiver with Kadarius Toney. But before we get into that, because I got a lot to cover getting back from my vacation, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video, as I will keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, let's have some fun. First and foremost, I do want to thank everyone who gave us our warm wishes as we did celebrate our wedding and we were on vacation during the time. It is very greatly appreciated and we did have an amazing time. But as you know, it is time to get back into the rhythm of things. And honestly, when I was thinking about getting back into the rhythm of things, I was like, kind of a weird timing on how I had a wedding vacation and then everything kind of jumbled in together, because I was like, what do I do next for a video when I get back? Because the Kansas City Chiefs are now on a bye week. Do I talk about what happened last week against the Niners? Because of course, when I'm on vacation, that means the Kansas City Chiefs offense decides to have their best game of the season. And I will cover that because I do want to give you all my reaction and I want you guys to know how I felt going into the game. Even though I didn't watch the game in depth, I did catch highlights. I did see y'all reaction on Twitter. And I want to give you how I felt after the game as well. But going into it's like, we're already a week past that. So do I really want to talk more into that and get right into that? But also, we have the trade deadline coming up too, which is also something for me to kind of lean on and get content off as well. But the Kansas City Chiefs are like, I got your back on this one. As yesterday, they did make a trade with the New York Giants and to acquire Kadarius Toney. So that's what we're going to dive into first and foremost here is our first thoughts on it, how we're feeling, and how it's going to impact the Chiefs moving forward, and if the Kansas City Chiefs should have made this trade or not. But before we do get into any of that, I kind of want to lay out a script on how the video is going to go. It is going to be mostly and if everything focusing on Kadarius Toney, and we're going to break it down on how I feel about it, what I've seen, and basically how he's going to impact the Kansas City Chiefs this year and going into further years, because he is on a rookie deal still. So that means the Kansas City Chiefs still hold all his rights, which is very intriguing with that. But with that, let's get into all of this and let's just stop all the talking. Now, my initial reaction when I first heard the news of Kadarius Toney being traded to the Kansas City Chiefs was excitement. And honestly, maybe I was the only one who felt that way because of how he hasn't produced in the NFL yet, what's been going on with him in the New York Giants, whether he has injury concerns, whether he does not have injury concerns, why he is not on the field. I kind of basically put that to a side and looked at what he is as a player and how he can basically excel in this offense and what it would mean for the Kansas City Chiefs. And my first thing I thought of was special teams, is what I thought a lot of people would think of too, is he's going to be your number one punt returner. And he's going to take Sky Moore's spot, which I think is beneficial for both players moving forward. I think with him going into the punt return role means Sky Moore doesn't have to be put into a position where he really is not a punt returner. So he should never been put in that position in the first place. I understand why the Kansas City Chiefs did it, because they want to see a player grow and they want to see him in a position to succeed and make him a better player all around overall. But when you see it doesn't fit him, it's time to make a switch. And I think that's one of the main reasons we got Kadarius Toney. I think it also helps Sky Moore out offensively as well, because I think that will tend to get him more snaps offensively. At least that's what I think initially, because once Kadarius Toney learns the playbook, which I think might take some time, I don't think this is different than any other player I will preach for this team, which is it's going to be a process to learn this playbook. Kadarius Toney is no exception as well. It'll take time, which I think he can start gelling between December and playoff time. But again, he's still not going to know the reps. That's why special teams, anyone, and I'm not going to say anyone because Sky Moore can't do it, but anyone who has a background in it, that not much changes from team to team. You could put him in there to return punts or kickoffs. I don't think he will return kickoffs. I think Isaiah Pacheco has shown enough, even though it has been inconsistency. And I know Chiefs Kingdom doesn't like it because every time it seems like he takes the ball out, he doesn't get to the 25. Even though last week he did have some good returns, and I think even against Buffalo he had one good return. That's why he shows you there can be good upside with there. So I think if anything, he's going to take the punt return roles. And then that means with me, Sky Moore, I at least hope he gets more snaps offensively since that goes away. And I think it will too. And I think that will help get a more of a rhythm and connection with Mahomes moving forward until Kadarius Toney learns this playbook, and then he is in full swing of things. And even though when Kadarius Toney learns the full playbook too, it doesn't mean that Sky Moore is eliminated or any of these weapons are eliminated whatsoever. I think it makes him more explosive than ever and makes Mahomes a better quarterback too, because he has more weapons, more reads, and to find a better open target that you're not going to be able to guard all these guys. So I think that helps in the long run as well too. And then we're going to talk about what the Kansas City Chiefs gave up, because I've heard Kansas City gave up a lot for Kadarius Toney just because he hasn't done too much in this league. And also too, it's a player the Giants weren't doing nothing with, so why would Kansas City give up that capital, which at the end of the day was a compensatory third-round pick and a 2023 sixth-round pick. And honestly, I don't think it's too much for a former first-round pick with the type of talent he has. And we know what Brett Veach does time in and time out. If you're a former first-round pick, you might as well be a Kansas City Chiefs, because Brett Veach will be after you and he will be fighting hard to get you on his team. It's just something he loves to do. He loves the upside with former first-round picks, and he loves the ability to try to get them to their full potential on the team. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on what fan you ask of Chiefs Kingdom. They'll say it doesn't work. And then you got guys who, I think if you're a rotational piece and you have proven at least a little profit for this team, I think that was a good flip for a first round pick. But again, I'm different, so who knows? I know a lot of people want to see these former first round picks come on this team and be a first round pick and be on this team for 10 years out. There's a reason they didn't work with their first team initially, so you can't expect the ceiling all the time, even though in this situation I will be. And what do I mean when I say I expect the ceiling from a guy like Kadarius Toney? Now, I'm not going to say 1,000 yards every year. That's crazy for me to think. But I think he will help bring a different asset that we don't have in the receiving game. You got your over-the-top guy in MVS. You got your possession body guy in Juju. And we're still trying to work out what Sky Moore will be, but I think he will still be a dog in this league. And then you got Kadarius Toney, which a lot of people compare to Tyreek Hill. I'm not going that far, but his shiftiness and elusiveness is second to none in this league. And if Andy Reid, which I believe he can, bring out the best of his ability, he's going to be one of the scariest weapons in this league. I'm not going to say it's going to happen this year, but give him a full offseason too. And then I know we preached that with Josh Gordon, but I think that's different type of things here. Josh Gordon was on the back end of his career. He wasn't in his prime, and there was things he dealt with on, off the field, injuries, concerns, all that. You know Josh Gordon's backstory, and it was just us being hopeful. With this, I think there's something to be more hopeful for, because this is a player who can basically excel a lot in this offense. And I know a lot of people main concern is going to be injury concern and also attitude, which we'll get into right now. So as we did mention, and also too, another one of my initial thoughts was, is injury really a concern here? I know this is a player we're dealing with where he has had injuries. He hasn't played this year either because of a hamstring injury, but also too, a lot of me got to thinking was, is this really a serious injury, or was this basically two sides coming to terms, basically saying, hey, let's basically say your career in New York is done for whatever it may be, and let's try to get the most out of this player, and let's not hurt him furthermore and hurt our draft capital in the future of getting something good for a player in return. Now, a lot of people saw the tweet he said, which is funny, and also too, I interpreted it different than a lot of people. New York Giants fans were salty about it. Chiefs Kingdom, of course, is very happy because he's healthy. But when he said, I don't share news with irrelevant people, a lot of people took that into fact, saying, hey, he basically hid his injury from the Giants. He could have played this whole time. And I understand you could take it that way, but I took it in a completely different aspect. I believe the Giants didn't know he was healthy, or at least getting on the brink of healthy, and that was just shared between them, and they decided not to play him. Now, when he means irrelevant people, he means us. He means Twitter. He means social media. He means regular media. Like, we don't need to know that. Whatever happens is between him and the organization, and what they decide to do with the injury, that's what they decide to do with the injury moving forward. Again, I could be wrong. Maybe he was really petty. Maybe he didn't tell the Giants organization he wasn't healthy. I don't know. I have a hard time believing that, but at the end of the day, if he did, hey, it is what it is. We're moving on to a new chapter. Kansas City would definitely have to monitor that with again, attitude. Again, a lot of people are concerned about that as well because he has been going on a kind of social media tirade. And if you're very familiar with Chiefs Kingdom, we are very familiar with players who have been on social media tirade. And those two don't go hand in hand whatsoever. But I think he was a player who was mostly, not hurt, but I want to say responsive on people coming at him. And again, you can have your different takes on it. Like some players, they can stay quiet. They could water under the bridge and avoid it. And some players, they will come after you. It depends on the player you're at. At the end of the day, I didn't see him instigate anything. I saw mostly people coming after him, and he responded. It would be different if he's like, F you, F this, F that, and just out of nowhere. At the end of the day, he was responding to people who came at him. And again, for some reason, I don't know how Andy Reid does it, but he does it very well to where players are different when they're under the Chiefs organization. I'm not saying he hides their personality and character because we've seen it with the Honey Badger and players. They show their character under social media. But we also seen the switch as well when, a prime example, Tyreek Hill. We see a whole new side of him and basically his new personality. And nothing bad about it whatsoever, but it's something we didn't see in Kansas City whatsoever. So I do expect that to be under wraps. I expect Kadarius Toney to be zoned in and basically enter this playbook and basically show us why he deserves to be on this team. And I think that's going to happen sooner rather than later. And I think for the people who are mostly focused on Kansas City giving up way too much capital for him, it's like, wait till he returns a punt. And I'm not saying for a touchdown, but wait till when he returns a punt for 20 yards, you're going to be like, oh, I'm happy to have him on this team. And that's what it's going to be. You guys are going to forget the draft capital whatsoever. At the end of the day, good teams, they know what to do with their draft pick when it's time to draft, but also when they have needs before draft in a season and on a Super Bowl run, they know how to get those draft picks and trade them for players that will help that team on a Super Bowl run. And right now, the two biggest needs, we've talked about it throughout the season, was a wide receiver number one. Yes, he's not a wide receiver number one, but he's a weapon and a pass rusher too. And as the Tuesday deadline comes closer and closer, Kansas City will probably get a pass rusher. I will make a video on it because there is a lot of pass rusher to discuss. And I'll give you, if there is five, I think there is five. Five guys that I have my eyes on for. On the top of my head, I think there is five. But it's going to be a video. We're going to have fun with it. We're going to discuss. And I just know Kansas City, I would be shocked if they didn't make a move at pass rusher. And if they make a move at pass rusher, it changes a lot of y'all perspective on this move then. Because you'll be like, oh, they got a good edge rusher now to move forward. And they got a wide receiver too. It's like they are ready to move forward. But right now you're just looking at the smaller picture and saying, they just got Kadarius Toney. What's that going to do for our defense? But if they make a move on the defensive wise, it's going to change a lot of y'all. A lot of y'all aren't going to be viewing it the same way as well. But moving back to the draft capital as well, it's like, it's a third-round pick, and I'm not going to take it for what it's not worth because that's where Brett Veach, Andy Reid, and the boys excel. But at the end of the day, if you guys have been subscribers on this channel and watched my videos, I mentioned Kadarius Toney as a good trade destination for the Kansas City Chiefs actually before the draft too. And that was actually one of my videos that actually kind of popped off for me a little bit, which I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit. Kind of popped off for me for the wrong reasons. It popped off because everyone thought I was using clickbait titles, which at the end of the day, if you're on YouTube, what isn't clickbait? But a lot of people don't know how to read titles. But that's neither here nor there. But I thought he would have been a good fit. And let's say the Kansas City Chiefs made this trade before the draft and they gave up a third-round pick, which they had a compensatory third-round pick. It would be different than, of course, next year's. But the wide receivers drafted in that range was Jalen Tolbert, Devin Gray, and I want to say David Hall. Now, they are good prospects, but at the end of the day, they don't have the same talent like Kadarius Toney. And you're not going to find a talent like Kadarius Toney in the third round either. That's why you take a chance for a guy like this and hope you can get the best of his potential and he excels in this offense. Again, I would have loved any of those guys in the third round, but at the end of the day, if you told me I could get a Kadarius Toney for a third-round pick, which at the time, I think before the draft, I was talking second-round pick because I think Giants were firm on their guy, and they were firm to try to get a 1, and they knew that wasn't going to happen. I'd have to rewatch my video, but I'm pretty sure I was going second. But now that we're fast-forwarding time, 3rd and 6th seems very, very good. And also, the Kansas City Chiefs have 13 draft picks. They still have 11. So if you wanted to make a move for a pass rusher and move a couple of picks, you could still do so. It's like I mentioned even before this year, Kansas City didn't need 11 picks. They don't need 11 picks again. So they can trade a couple picks to get a pass rusher and still build the holes they have. And honestly, you look at this team all in all, they got excellent depth. They don't have that many holes. A lot of you guys stick to 2 holes really, and it's wide receiver and it's wide receiver and pass rusher. And then also too, I would like to mention right tackle as well, because it is a hole, but you guys are very focused on Lucas Niang moving forward. I don't know. That's a huge question mark for me. I think that's something that needs to be addressed, as well as Orlando Brown Jr. There's some stats saying he's doing very well. I'm going to be silent on that, because even though it says he's doing very well, what I see on film doesn't make me feel like he's doing very well, but that's neither here nor there. I think Mahomes makes the whole O-line better as a whole. But those are your biggest 3 needs. So you can cover that in the first 3 rounds and then also trade back up. We've seen Brett Veach do it where he hasn't had a 3rd round pick, got back in the 3rd round, hasn't had a 2nd round pick, got back in the 2nd round. I'm not too concerned about draft capital until it becomes draft day. And if you're getting needs filled to get into a Super Bowl run, you might as well do it now, because if you wait, there's no pleasing Chiefs kingdom whatsoever. Because let's say we didn't make a Kadarius Toney move, or we don't go after a pass rush. It'd be like, we should have got a wide receiver. We should have got a pass rush. And then let's say we trade for someone like Brian Burns, for example, and it takes him a minute to not learn the defense, but basically get production on the defense. Or same with Kadarius Toney. It's like, why did we give up that? It's like, make up your mind. You wanted something and it's not working the way it is. Give it time. Patience is a key of virtue, and that's the hugest thing in this league as well. So any trade that happens now, don't expect like Kadarius Toney against the Titans to return a punt. I would love it. Or go for 100 yards. I would love it. But we got to be realistic with our expectations. Even if we've got a Josh Allen or a Brian Burns, I would love for them to come in right away and get 2 sacks. Is that realistic? No. That's why we need to temper our expectation with any move that comes in. Because at the end of the day, if we made a move or we didn't make a move, I could see any type of way Chiefs Kingdom can be upset. So just temper those expectations. As well, too, there was also reports which kind of shocked me, which I wasn't even expecting whatsoever after the Kadarius Toney move. But we're here. And it's Odell Beckham Jr. is still on the Kansas City Chiefs high list, which is weird. But the more and more you think about it, I guess I understand it to an extent. Is because, like I mentioned, it's going to take time for Kadarius Toney to learn this offense. They're going to have a package for him to where, hey, get him out there, get him to make his plays. He's going to be on special teams. He's going to do what he needs to do this year to be effective. Unlike you get on the short-term policy an Odell Beckham Jr., which he seems to be healthy in December, and a playoff run too, which he's going to be, I don't want to say X-receiver because he's not that type of stature, but he's going to be your main guy with a Juju as well. And when I first saw it, I was just like, man, Kansas City said, screw the defense, we're going to score 50 points a game. And I say screw the defense because they haven't made a move on defense. And until they do, I will talk about that. But that would just be so interesting to see. I would still welcome Odell Beckham Jr. definitely for a playoff run, just for the fact, too. If anything, like I mentioned and would mention, like with the Kareem Hunt, like we don't need Kareem Hunt, but like if you pull him away from a championship contender like a Buffalo Bills, Rams, etc., it's like that's a positive as well too. And I think he would be beneficial if healthy on this offense. Again, I'm not saying if we get him in December, he goes for 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. No, but he will definitely make Mahomes better, and it would be something I'd be very, very open to as well. So it's something to look forward to. It was very surprising, to say the least, that Kansas City Chiefs are still suitors for Odell Beckham, but hey, I'm here for it if it happens. And I also wanted to chime in on something too as well. With Kadarius Toney, which I thought was very funny, was the New York Giants fan base and also Chiefs Kingdom as well kind of chimed in, is that Kadarius Toney's back piece he has of his 89 and the whole New York City as well is like, oh, he's going to regret all that. And hey, he might not, but it's a huge piece. It's honestly a very nice piece. I got tattoos on my own, as you see, but tattoos are funny to me because in that type of aspect, you gotta, usually a person 9 times out of 10, I can't talk for everybody, but I'll talk on myself. They should tell a story about the person. And if you look at his back tat, it's 89. It's got New York City. And it's basically the city that drafted him. It started his NFL career. Whether it went good, whether it went bad, that's where his NFL career started. So I don't think there would be no regrets behind the tattoo. I see a lot of people crossing out the 8, putting the 1 there, and he might get a Kansas City Chiefs tattoo. Who knows? The way his journey goes, he might add on whatever happens throughout his career on his body. A lot of NFL players do it too. I don't think it's a regret of his, but I don't know him. So, but if it was me, it's not like I'd be looking in the mirror and be like, why did I get this huge piece on my back? But then again, he had a very, very interesting, year and a half with the Giants, so he might. But again, he's got the money. Maybe he wants to get a laser removal. I've never seen a huge laser removal like that. That'd be ridiculous. But like I mentioned, those tell stories to people's life, and it's a chapter in his life. So at the end of the day, I know me, I wouldn't regret it. But hey, we're 2 different peas in a pod, so you just never know. But with that, Chiefs Kingdom, I already know what I'm going to get in the comments down below. So let me know how you're feeling about the Kadarius Toney move. I know a lot of y'all will say this isn't a wide receiver number 1. He won't be effective this year. This is a move for the future, which also, too, before I close it off, it is a move for the future because a lot of y'all are going to mention as well, what does this do for the receiving core? And right when I was going to cut this video off, we got something to close it off perfectly. As you look at this wide receiving core in a whole, and a lot of people was like, oh, this means Juju's not coming back. What's McColl's status and all that? And I'll dive down the list on that. This has nothing, and I will repeat, nothing to do with Juju Smith-Schuster. Kansas City will do whatever it takes to get Juju back on this team. And then people are like, well, if they didn't sign Hill to a long-term contract, why would they do that with Juju? You guys just aren't paying attention to the game then whatsoever. Kansas City Chiefs did whatever they could to get Tyreek back on this team. Tyreek just outpriced the Chiefs. It is what it is. Juju won't do that with the Chiefs, and his market is not going to be as high as what Tyreek's is. Yes, that wide receiver market is going to continue to rise. But at the end of the day, and I told y'all, Juju is Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver number 1. Whether you like it or don't, he has proven week in and week out, back-to-back weeks, and he's going to continue to do it. He has basically elevated Mahomes' game and stature to what Hill couldn't do. I'm not saying he's better than Hill whatsoever, but we haven't seen Mahomes throw back shoulder passes. We haven't seen, and I don't want to say that either, but we haven't seen Mahomes be this comfortable with the receiver to basically, he is a big body guy, so he can just throw it and trust his guy to make a catch and basically be physical and bully a guy. You can see that comfortability and you can see that gel, and it's going to tend to show week in and week out. I told y'all to be patient. Whether y'all like Juju's wide receiver number 1 or not, that's a personal problem on you guys. I'm perfectly fine with it. And honestly, this basically move with Kadarius Toney says more to me about McCole Hardman, and I'll just say what I said on Twitter. Enjoy the ride. I'm not saying Kansas City won't try to re-sign McCole Hardman in the offseason because I would love to have him back, but I am saying this is basically an insurance-y policy, if anything. McCole Hardman, someone's going to offer him a Christian Kirk type of deal. And you can't sign Juju. You can't sign McCole. You can't keep Kadarius Toney. You can't sign all these guys. So I have a feeling that will be the one to subtract it all. And then you're going to run in the future with a Juju, Kadarius, and Sky Moore. And then find your other guys moving forward. Oh, you still got MVS as well. That is my apology, Marquez. I didn't mean to do that, but that is a solid 4 moving forward. And I just think right now, like I said, I don't want to count McCole as the odd man out, but just enjoy the ride is all I can say. I think he's going to have a magnificent year. He had his best game to date this season. I think he will continue to show out. I just think he will outprice himself the same way Tyreek did with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that's what the Kadarius Toney move says a lot, if anything, about this team is, hey, we're going to be 2 steps ahead instead of going in the offseason and being shocked, which I am perfectly fine with. But for everyone that thinks this has something to do with Juju, it doesn't. And a lot of people are focusing on Juju. Well, he only signed a 1-year deal. Yeah, he bet on himself. He's going to sign a multi-year deal here with Kansas City. I truly believe it. He signed a 1-year deal with the Steelers too as well. It didn't work out well with him betting on himself. 2 different times. I think he's going to sign a multi-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. If anything I learned about Juju is his loyalty with the team. You saw how hurt he was leaving Pittsburgh because he didn't really want to leave. And now that he's with a new group of guys, they're playing Call of Duty, they seem to gel well. You could tell he's very emotional to the game. He's very emotional to the locker room and guys he surrounds himself with and the chemistry he builds. If that is the way it looks, he's going to have a hard time leaving the Kansas City Chiefs. He's not going to leave for top end dollar. And as well, I don't think the Chiefs are going to lowball him because you can see what he's doing with this offense. I try to tell y'all, hey, these wide receivers are good. They didn't need another one, but here we are. They acquired Kadarius Toney. Now we're going to close this video off, Chiefs Kingdom. Let me know how you feel about this trade. I know a lot of y'all aren't too happy about it, but hey, on this side, I am. I'm looking at the upside. I think it brings a lot of potential. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss. But before I do close this video out, please be sure to subscribe to this channel. Give me that big thumbs up and like this video. With that, y'all take care.